So, good afternoon, students. Welcome to the Analyst. And this is 5th of February 2024. And we'll look at 4 important articles from the Indian Express and the Hindu. The first will be regarding the Uniform Civil Code. Then we'll study the solar energy sector. Then we'll understand what is a flow test. And finally, what is the WTO dispute settlement mechanism. So the first article is regarding the Uniform Civil Code. Now Uttarakhand Cabinet, it clears the first draft of UCC. Now this UCC pertains to the state. So this brings us to the question that what do you mean by Uniform Civil Code or UCC? Now please appreciate that Article 44, which is part of the DPSP, it mandates that there should be a Uniform Civil Code. That brings us to the question, what do you mean by uniform and what do you mean by civil code? So ideally a law is divided into civil laws and criminal laws. So there is something called as a civil wrong and there is something called as a criminal wrong. Now all the laws which are related to criminal laws, they are already codified. They are already codified and they have already become uniform. Right? So you are not talking about the criminal laws here. A. On the other hand, because of the diversity that India has and due to the historical doubts on other communities, on let's say governance, on the legislature, the uniformity of law could not be bought in the civil domains. So that is why it was kept in the directive principles. Why? Because if it is not implemented, you are seeking that at some point in time this will be implemented. Now what all areas will the civil laws cover? Okay, that is a simple question. So it will cover your marriage, it will cover divorce, it will cover maintenance, adoption, inheritance and succession of property. Now we must look at the background, the backdrop of this Uniform Civil Code. So if there is a 15 marker or let's say you are using this in your essays, so you should have some depth of content in such topics. So looking at the Lex Loci report of 1840, so the Britishers, the colonial rulers, they wanted to implement a uniform civil code. However, they did not. Post the 1857 revolt and in the Queen's 1859 proclamation, they ensured from this point onwards after the revolt that they would not interfere in the religious matters per se and in the cultural aspects of Indian people and Indian communities, right? You have different sects, you have different religions. So within those communities, the British, the colonial government, they will not interfere because they do not want this divided society to be united again against them, against the Britishers. But however, some sense prevailed and Dr. Ambedkar, he wanted a uniform civil code, but unfortunately because of political reasons and because of lack of support, he could not bring a uniform civil code. However, he had the confidence to go about with the uniformity, particularly with the Hindu religion. So what he did, he went for the Hindu Code Bill and he went for the Hindu Marriage Act, which ensures that all the marriages which are solemnized through the Hindu customs, they are to be seen under the Hindu Marriage Act and a uniformity was established. Then you have the Hindu Succession Act and all these acts, they ensured that now the communities which are eligible under the Hindu Marriage Act, they are not going for polygamy. So essentially what we are trying to do is that if there are some redundancies, if there are some discrepancies, if there are some discriminatory practices, so what we wanted to do is at the inception of independence, we wanted to get rid of such discrepancies and inconsistencies. Why I am saying discrepancy and inconsistency? Because you will see that some of these provisions, they are violative of our fundamental rights which are encapsulated under part 3. So right from article 14 going on to article 19, 21. So you'll see a lot of these practices which are questioned time and again before the court of law, before the high courts, before the Supreme Court. You will see that they are in some sense violative of the fundamental rights. So at the inception itself, this reform happened in the Hindu community per se. Now, then what happened that we went to the court in the Shah Bano case. Now what happened with Shah Bano is that she was given an instant triple talaq, that is talaq, talaq, talaq. And after this triple talaq, she was denied the maintenance, which forced her to approach the court. The approach to the court led to the giving of maintenance under section 125 of the CRPC. Now please appreciate that the CRPC, it is the procedural code for criminal law. So under criminal law, the maintenance was given. Why? Because there was lack of any uniformity in the civil code. Then what happened? Then the court also asked that please go for a uniform civil code and abide by the article 44, but that didn't happen. So the government was forced to nullify this judgment. How? Because there were a lot of protests, there were lots of meetings, so the government was forced. So government took the decision of bringing the Muslim Women's Right to Protection Act of 1986. This was to somehow justify the community, somehow nullify the after effects of this judgment within the community, within the Muslim community. Then came the Daniel Latifi case. Now in Daniel Latifi, what happened is that we were challenging this act itself, this Muslim Women Divorce Act, Right to Protection on Divorce Act of 1986. This itself was challenged. However, what Supreme Court did is it tried to go for the harmonious construction route, that is one section, that is section 125 of CRPC and this act, they were harmonized. So no debate was created. So Supreme Court harmonized MWA with CRPC section 125, ensuring maintenance for a lifetime or until remarriage. So there was some amount of reconciliation. Now then what happened, that there was a tendency in men of Hindu community that you are not supposed to go for polygamy. Now what if as a person who is belonging from the Hindu community, the person wants to go for polygamy? So there was this practice of converting your religion and then to go towards multiple marriages. So what happened is that, let's take an example. Let's say there is a man who is a Hindu man, and this Hindu man marries a Hindu woman, and after marriage wants to marry another woman, so now converts into another religion and then goes for the second wife. Now that says that this violates the right of this Hindu woman. This was held in the Sarla Mudgal case. That means if you have solemnized a marriage with the Hindu Marriage Act, please abide by the duties of a Hindu marriage. You cannot convert to another religion just for remarriage or just for polygamy, and by doing or by converting yourself into a different religion, you are not absolving of your marriage, you are not dissolving your marriage. You have to take on the responsibilities. That means you are not allowed to leave your responsibilities by just going for conversion. So court held that a Hindu marriage under Hindu law can only be dissolved as per Hindu Marriage Act, making a second marriage after conversion an offense. Let's take an example. Let's say the Hindu man, he is married to a Hindu woman, and this Hindu man converts, and after converting does a triple talaq to the Hindu woman. Will it be a valid divorce? The answer is no. Now this is back in that time. Right now triple talaq also has been banned, right? Now 2017 we saw the triple talaq case where it was again banned. Now what are the arguments that are in favor of the uniform civil code? So you can see that we are talking about gender justice, equality. So all these arguments, you can also bring the constitutional flair, you can bring in the articles here, right? I am just trying to use the keywords, and wherein you think that article can fit in, you can add. For example, inequality, I would very casually jot down article 14, right? Whenever I'm talking about equality, I will definitely jot down article 14, and I'll also talk about maybe some equity, some aspects of equity. Then I am I am against discrimination. Who am I? I am the Indian Constitution. So discriminatory practices have to be given up, right, over the period of time. Then I will remove the legal disparity. I'll remove the group disparity. I will remove the legal pluralism. How can I judge? How can I judge two people differently? Two people are going for marriage. Two people are going for succession. Let's say in my personal practices, we are not supposed to give property to women. Is that in any sense against the principles of equality or equity for that matter? So if there is a practice like this in my religion, will the Supreme Court tolerate it for long? Right? So it will be nullified, it will be torn down, right? It will be declared null and void, and equality will prevail. So the idea is that if there are some discriminatory practices, if there is some legal plurality, if there is some disparity which has been created due to different set of laws, that will be bridged. And this also fulfills the ideas of one nation and one law. And we must go away from this legal pluralism, and the way we came out with a single code for criminal aspects, similarly we must come out with a civil code for all aspects. This brings some amount of uniformity. So other arguments, you can see that it will integrate India, so more unity amongst the diversity. We are not at all saying that the diversity has to be nullified. No, you have to appreciate the unity along with the diversity. But this will ensure that there is more integration, there is more cohesion within the society. So that is one argument. Then the personal laws, they have become a loophole to essentially carry on with the practices which are antithetical to the constitutional morality, which are antithetical to the ethos of Indian Constitution, which are antithetical to the preamble itself, and they are extremely violative of the articles present in part 3, that are the fundamental rights. Then this will also help in reducing the vote bank politics, and we must appreciate that vote bank politics is also linked to criminalization in politics and politicization of criminals. And simultaneously you must move towards a progressive nation. For example, at one point of time we were never debating about LGBTQ marriages. Today at least there is a debate. It might happen that at some point of time we can be so progressive that they are also allowed to adopt children, etc. Right? Then there are more rights to the women. Naturally, please appreciate that women in all types of society, in all communities, they are one of the most disadvantaged group. And the first thing that you should understand about equity and equality is the equality of opportunity. And to give equality in opportunity, first you need to remove the discriminations that are born into the system, particularly if it is in my religious culture system. If there is any kind of discriminatory practice, that has to be given up. Then all Indians should be treated the same, like should be treated alike. Simple argument, but it's a very strong argument. It promotes a real secularism. So one part that they are saying is that real secularism means treating everyone equally, rather than creating small groups, creating different laws from them, and then making them as vote banks. So these are the arguments. Now, what are the arguments that are against? So it will violate the rights. What kind of rights? Again, they are violating. If you bring a UCC, which is part of a DPSP, can it violate my fundamental rights of practicing my faith, practicing my religion? To practice, profess and propagate, and to follow my own conscience, can it violate these rights? Right? So your religious rights, right from 29, and your diversity rights, your linguistic rights, can it be violated? So that is one argument. Then it will threaten cultural diversity. Now it happens then in ecosystem, whenever we are studying ecosystem, what do you say? That if a ecosystem is more diverse, it is more resilient. If it is more diverse, it is able to handle a lot of shocks in and out, right? So the moment I am going for more unification, simultaneously I am also reducing the differences, particularly the diversity. And if that happens, then we become a monochrome, and monochrome is not a good color to look at, right? So do you like single tone colors, or do you like multicultural, multicolored, right? So that is the idea. So then you have a lot of existing secular laws, and leave the religious aspects, leave the cultural aspects to itself, right? So law should not start dictating the terms and modify the religion and modify the cultural practices at its own whims and fancies, right? Because the foremost argument is that whenever you bring a law, the law may be coming at 1900, it may be coming at 1850, but religion is pre-legal. So religion was there before law, right? So how can something which came very recently in last two and a half 200 years, 250 years, how can it violate the religious laws, right? So that is one argument. Then it will lead to imposition of a majority code, right? So the majoritarian laws, they can prevail, and that can create disaffection in the society as well. Then you must appreciate that the personal laws is in concurrent list, and a lot of these practices, we must understand, also vary from state to state. They also vary within a religion from one sect to other. For example, one community called the Daudi Ora community will have different set of cultural practices which are not followed in the same religion, in the same in other sects of the same religion. So they have different kind of diversities based upon language, based upon the region that they are located. So how can you bring such a uniform code when there is so much diversity from district to district, right? That is one argument. Now please appreciate what is the way forward in such a question. So you have to reflect India's multiculturalism while preserving the diversity, and it should be about unity, which is to be prioritized, but it should not be about absolute uniformity. You want some amounts of uniformity, you want some amount of unity, but you also want to appreciate and cherish your diversity. And then you have to go for a broad stakeholder involvement and engagement, including religious leaders, legal experts, to ensure that there is diverse perspectives. Then you need a fair and legitimate UCC, and you have to eliminate all the practices which are not meeting the constitutional standards, that is your constitutional morality, right? Let's look at the second article, and this is solar energy. Now center is pushing towards solar energy. And in this interim budget, what did we see? That there was a launch of the push towards a solar rooftop. Now we must understand why solar energy is so important and what is the potential that we are looking at. So if you look at the map of India, you will see some of the regions, they have very good potential. Now if you look at this region, can I say this region is also one of the regions where we follow rain-fed farming? Yes. Then if I'm looking at this area, can I say this is also our deserts? And we also have the Thar desert, the Marusthali. We also have the Run of Kutch here. Yes, this is Run of Kutch. This is what? Marusthali. In the interiors of plateau, what do we have? We have the Telangana plateau, we have the Karnataka plateau, we have the Maharashtra plateau, we have Vidarbha, Marathwada. So all these regions, they are on the rain shadow effect, on the leeward side of the Western Ghats, and therefore they are devoid of the excess amount of monsoon that they expect. On the other hand, you see this area again, a cold desert. This is the Leh and Ladakh landscape. Now in all these regions, what do you see? You see a very high solar potential. So now can I say that a lot of these regions can be converted into solar farms? Yes, solar farms. Now what are the emissions that come out of solar farm? Nothing. So you only put in the capex, that is the capital expenditure, and you create the plant, you generate the employment, and later on you are just maintaining the plant. And whether you are creating a grid connected or not, you are essentially at a decentralized level. So can I say that in my village, if I am installing a solar rooftop, I can just fulfill my own needs? So can I call this a decentralized model? Take a parallel example. Let's say I am taking out groundwater. Okay. Can I say the groundwater is decentralized in this case? Yes. Similarly, let's say on my roof, I am putting some solar panels and I'm using the electricity. Can I say this is decentralized solar energy? Yes. So that makes me somehow Atmanirbhar from what? Atmanirbhar from the problems that happens in a grid. Now, what do you mean by a grid? So let's say there is a connection north, south, east, west, right? And there are so many producers, right? And these producers, they are connected, and then you have a lot of consumers. So consumers are connected to the producers, okay, via transmission lines. Now what happens is that in some areas there is no sun, let's say there is no energy. So what happens, this grid connectivity, it allows for transmission of energy from demand from supply regions to demand regions, and then to resupply it to the consumers, right? So if I'm connected with the grid, so what happens? The moment I need electricity as a state, I will get some electricity from some other state, right? But forget about the grid. Let's say there are some problems in the grid. So can I say that if I am on a decentralized basis, I am Atmanirbhar on my own? Simultaneously, if I also have an electricity connection, then can I say now I have two sources of power? One, I can use the electricity which is coming, right, from the grid. B, I have my solar rooftop which is on the top. So two supply lines of electricity that I can use. So maybe in the morning I can use my solar energy, and at the night, when I'm sleeping and taking rest, I can use the normal electricity, right? Now look at the potential. So we are already there, and the fourth, globally we are standing at the fourth level in terms of our total capacity, and it's 70 to 80 gigawatt. And please appreciate that India today is making approximately 400 gigawatt energy per year, right? This is the total energy. So out of that 70 to 80 you are making in solar. That means you are easily around 20%. So that's a very remarkable feat, that 20% of India's energy today is coming directly from solar. Is that a remarkable feat or not? Yes. Then what is the max potential? At what level can we go? So the max potential, according to the National Institute of Solar Energy, now remember this NISE, okay, whenever you see this mnemonic, NICE, it's related to solar energy. So NICE assessed the country's solar potential at 748 gigawatt. We are not even at 10% of our potential, not even at 10% of our potential. Now simultaneously, hold your thought and think about it. Today we are at 400 gigawatt. Now it is contemplated that by 2030 our demand will be 800 to 1000 gigawatt. Based upon the economic growth, it can be as low as 800 gigawatt and as high as 1000 gigawatt. That means what I'm saying is today's power production will naturally have to double. So let's say I am producing 1 kilowatt hour of power as a thermal power plant. I will also have to double it to 2 kilowatt per hour. But that means I also have to deploy a lot of solar energy, solar panels. I have to deploy a lot of thermal power plants, etc. So this is an area where doubling is definite in the upcoming decade because of the sheer demand, because of the sheer growth. So the moment what happens with power is that as you are increasing your income per capita, simultaneously your power growth, power demand will also outshoot, because the moment you are coming out of poverty and you are coming into the digital space and you are coming to the connected grid, what happens is suddenly there is a spike in demand, and suddenly you will demand more goods and services which are again dependent with the electricity. Now this being said, let's understand that this potential is by assuming this 750 odd gigawatt that we are assuming is by assuming that 3% of our wasteland, only 3% of the wasteland, that is being covered by solar photovoltaic. Now simultaneously you have to also understand a simple story that India was using a lot of coal or thermal power plant, right? So coal powered power plants, thermal power plants, we were using that. Simultaneously what was happening is that we were looking at issues like sea level rise is there, then we were looking at global warming, then we were looking at climate change. So all these keywords, they were coming in, right? They were new terms that were coming in, but suddenly they become very vigorous as Paris agreement of UNFCCC, CCC approach, right? So this was back in 2015. Now from this moment onwards, the world kind of hedged. The world kind of shifted suddenly towards green energy. The world suddenly shifted towards green energy, and the words which were very much liked in these forums like WEF, WTO, etc., that you are talking about, let's say you're giving a speech, so you will see some common terms that are coming, let's say clean energy, green energy, then renewable energy, then sustainable energy mix. So these words were becoming they were frequently being used. So post your Paris agreement, what happened is that the world was hedging, world was moving. You can call this as a green pivot. So this was a green energy pivot. So suddenly the countries, the economies, the World Economic Forum, all the multilateral organizations, they started to push towards this green energy pivot. That means now I will naturally increase the thermal power plant, but I will totally not depend on the thermal power plant. Instead, I will have to spike up my production from, let's say, solar energy, from, let's say, wind energy. So why? Because I want a sustainable energy mix. Now, if you look at this diagram very carefully, if you look at the stats here, so in 2010, 16% of our energy was coming, 16% of our energy was coming from renewables. In 2020, 23%. And in 2030, we have promised the world that 50% of our energy is coming from renewable energy. That means one bigger supplier of this renewable energy, one very big supplier of this renewable energy will alone be solar energy. So tell me, if there will be so much contribution from solar energy, will there be a capex cycle towards solar energy? Will there be capital expenditure? Yes. Will there be private capex also? Private capex also. Today we are seeing that a lot of companies, for example, NTPC is known for thermal power plant. Now NTPC is moving towards a mix of thermal plus solar energy. So companies which were getting power from coal, they are moving into solar energy. That is the turnaround. Now look at how we have grown in terms of global solar energy generation. So it's an exponential curve, and simultaneously if you look at our proportion of renewable energy installation, what do you see? That 53%. That 53%. Matlab, if we are going for 50% by 2030 from renewables, that means I am going for 400 gigawatt from renewables, out of which 50% will be solar energy. That means 200 gigawatt. That is what the industry is thinking, 200 gigawatt, and today we are standing at 70 gigawatt. So by 2030, how many times I will multiply? At least 3x. Yes, to meet the targets, simple targets. And these are not the government targets, these are the targets based upon the demand and based upon the commitments that we have done to the world. Now, where did we do these go for these commitments? So we went for these commitments in COP26, which is called the India's Panchamrita. Now here you will see that you will reach non-fossil fuel energy capacity of 500 gigawatt. So any energy which has nothing to do with fossil fuel, 500 gigawatt. Then you are also saying 50% energy requirement via renewable energy by 2030. So any energy you use, 50% renewable energy, right? Now, what are the benefits? So you are going towards clean, green and renewable energy. Secondly, you can also tap into the green funds. Now, if the world is moving towards green, clean, renewable energy, if these words are in vogue, that means the investors, the large sovereign fund, the pension funds, all the funds basically, which are talking about trillions of dollars, they also want to invest in these areas. So you can tap into these green funds, right? Then you will also have to fulfill your commitments under your Panchamrita goals, which you have given in COP26, which was a revised version of your commitments in Paris. So these are nothing but the NDCs, India's NDCs, nationally determined contributions towards our fight, our common global fight towards climate change. Then you are looking at two types of solar energy per se. You are looking at grid connected. So either I am connected with the grid, I can supply to the grid. Okay, any energy I produce. So let's say I have 100 megawatt of a plant, right? And I also have a industry, and this industry uses 50 megawatt of energy, right? 50 megawatt is used by my company only. That rest of the 50 megawatt I will supply to the grid, so that I will also earn money from this energy production, and I will also supply the energy to my own industry, right? So example, take an example, very simple example le lo ek, that let's say I have iron ore smelting plant, or plus I have a thermal power plant. ठीक है. So iron and steel plant में if you have a thermal power plant, what happens is that you are fulfilling your own energy needs, and the excess you are getting some money out of it. Okay, ये एक चीज हो गई. Then you have off grid, that means let's say we are traveling to Leh Ladakh, and it's very difficult to lay down and cross your Himalayas with all these transmission lines. You are talking about 6,000 meters of mountains, so you think these transmission lines will climb up to that height and then fall down, right? So it's very difficult. So what you do is you create a local grid, a decentralized grid there. So in these regions, can you tap into the solar energy and create a decentralized grid? The answer is yes, right? So distant places, rough terrains, difficult kind of infrastructure development, wherever you have such bottlenecks, wherever you have such excessive capex required just to connect a small village, what you can do, you can create a off-grid kind of setup of solar energy. Then you are also talking about that it is a decentralized solution. So I need not think in Delhi that how should your electricity look like, right? You get your sun, you can raise your electricity, and you can also sell that electricity, right? So if you sell that electricity, you are also making money. So essentially, a simple household can become an energypreneur. So you're earning some money from energy. And please understand that the global energy market, it is one of the biggest, suppliers of economic growth. Combine your coal, combine your natural gas, combine your petroleum, and if you combine all of this, look at the global energy market, right? Then you can also tap the lands in the rural hinterland, and you can look at the targets like doubling income. Why? Because let's say I am producing sugarcane. Okay, I am producing sugarcane. Now, along with sugarcane, I am getting sugar. I am also getting ethanol. Ethanol is used for blending in oil. Yes. Then I am also going for some compressed biogas with my press mud. So in all this situation, what I am getting, this is what? Energy. This is what? Energy. So will I have multiple sources of income as a sugarcane farmer? Because I will get money if I sell it to the industry who is making sugar, or to an ethanol maker, or to a compressed biogas maker. So I will have multiple sources of income. One point. Similarly, if I have a land which is not doing well, which is not fertile, or which is, has become a bad land, or there is a land in my village where I am not able to till. So can I convert it? Or let's say I am just getting 2,000 rupees rent from my land. And if I put up a solar farm, I will get at least 50,000. So will it not generate more revenues for the rural hinterland? The answer is yes. Why? Because you have lots of horizontal spaces. And solar energy, it is also one of the biggest problem of solar energy is that it requires a lot of space, a horizontal space, right? This is one of the disadvantages that you can see. Now, it will also improve the health because it reduces the drudgery. Now, think about it. In the villages, if you go, still, even after supplying your LPG gases, still there is a tendency of using what? Tendency of using wood. Now, wood is for heating purposes, right? Think about it. Let's say I have a heater, and I have a chula. In one case, I am getting free electricity from my solar rooftop. So will I not use, let's say, some solar-based geysers, some solar-based heaters? Yes, can I use it? The answer is yes. Solar lamps. So all those solutions are there, which is directly tapped from the sun. So rather than going for drudgery, trying to go find and cut grass, cut all these trees, twigs, etc. So it reduces the drudgery and improves the health, because you don't have to inhale the or ingest the smoke. Then employment generation, localized and enhancing living standards, that is offshoots or the multiplier effects of any industry. Now, the scalability. So it ensures that you can go for rapid capacity addition. The moment you get a land, you can directly horizontally spread, and you have very short lead time. So comparing it with a nuclear power plant or let's say a thermal power plant, they have very short lead times. Now, what are these schemes? So you have the National Solar Mission, you have the Solar Parks scheme, then you have viability gap funding, you have CPSU scheme, wherever the PSUs, they are continuously deploying solar rooftop, and simultaneously the PSUs, they are also going for investment in these solar parks and farms. So any PSU who's having any experience in the energy sector, they have now ventured into the solar energy sector. Then you have also gone for the FDI up to 100%, and you are also looking at PLI scheme for photovoltaic development. Then you have created a project development cell in the ministry so that you can handle bigger projects and you can professionally manage them. Then you have created a green term ahead market which facilitates the sale of renewable energy in advance. Now, when you are looking at off-grid solutions, what kind of solutions are you looking at? So, solar home lighting solutions, solar street lighting, solar pump, you have solar lanterns, solar study lamps, and solar heating solutions. And the target is under the National Solar Mission, the target is of 2 gigawatt. 2 gigawatt or 2000 megawatt of off-grid, non-connected PV systems, photovoltaic systems. Then you have PM Kusum. PM Kusum is looking at what? It is looking at solar pumps. Solar pumps, why? Because there is a free electricity regime, which is based upon subsidy, which allows for extra pumping of groundwater. Now, what we are trying to do is that this free electricity regime is to be replaced with standalone solar pumps, right? Then Atal Jyoti Yojana to go for solar street lighting systems in states with less than 50% of households covered with grid power. So now mainstreaming all these off-grid solutions. So you will see all around you that such solar lamps, they have been installed which switch on their own, right, based upon the timings. And then you have grid connected schemes. So under the National Solar Mission, again solar park scheme, VGF scheme, CPSU, defense schemes, canal bank, canal top scheme. So today we are trying to use, let's say, our railway station, our buildings, our defense establishment, our PSUs, along with creation of ultra mega solar parks. Example, Bhadala. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to solarize areas like Kutch, Kathiawad, Leh and Marusthali. So land should not be wasted and we can use such land. Let's look at floor test, because a floor test is to be held in Jharkhand Assembly. Now, Article 1742, it gives the authority at the state level with the governor, who is the head of a state, right? And he is a de facto or de jure. Is the governor a de facto head or a de jure state? Please tell me. Now, this governor, what he will do, he can summon, he can dissolve, and he can prorogue the state legislative assembly. Now, what do you understand by a floor test? So essentially, if after an election, what happens is that the governor can appoint a person who he thinks has the majority. Now, how do you finally continue in that post? So let's say you are appointed as the chief minister by the governor, but how do you prove that you have the majority? I have a feeling, I have a gut feeling, so I have appointed you, right? Why I have the gut feeling? Because you are from the largest political party, you also seem to be in the posters, and you also claim, let's say you are also the head of your state party. So I think that maybe you are the chief ministerial candidate, and I also hear chatter from your party that you are supposedly the candidate. So I appoint you as the chief minister, and you are the single largest party, right? In another circumstance, let's say there are two parties having almost equal amount of legislators, MLAs. So in this case, I think that, oh, you are more mature, you have more political acumen, and you have been the leader of this particular group. On the other hand, the other person that I see, he is not he's a new entrant. So now, using my discretionary power, what I did, the only thing that I'm doing is, where I'm using my discretionary power without the aid and advice. Remember please, the governor is acting usually with the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. That is clear. Here, I have a situational discretion. In first example, what had, you are the leader, this is the discretion that I'm taking. Okay, that you are supposedly, I'm just supposing that you have the support. So I have appointed. On the other hand, I have two equal groups. Here, first discretion that I have used, I will select this group. Then within this group, I have selected the chief minister, the prospective chief minister. Now, after taking oath, etc., the first thing that you have to do is prove your majority. You have to show me that you have 50 plus 50% plus 1 present and voting, members present and voting. You have to show me your voting strength on the floor of the house, not in my home, not in a paper, not with signatures, nothing, no WhatsApp, nothing. You have to prove your strength on the floor of the house, and this is also the ratio of the SR Bommai judgment. See, as a governor, I have nothing to, I don't have the judgment. I cannot be God. I cannot think, oh, you seem very strong. Oh, you have 200 votes. No. So SR Bommai says, oh governor, please don't apply your mind. Let the strength be judged on the floor of the house, physically, by conduction of votes, right? So that is the simple argument. Now let's look at the further points. So a floor test is conducted to ascertain if the executive holds the confidence of the legislature. Now if this confidence is broken, then what do? So you resign. You resign, or the governor will definitely dismiss you. Okay, you should have the confidence of the house. That means you are a CM, and the CM will appoint a council of minister, right? So you should have the support of the legislature. So this political executive can only work until they have the support of the house. They have the confidence of the house. The opposite of this is the no confidence motion. So if you bring the no confidence motion and the motion goes ahead, that means you have to resign, right? And if you defeat the motion, then what happens? You continue in power. So floor test is about ascertaining whether a particular candidate has the numbers in hand. On the other hand, you have a composite floor test. What do you mean by composite floor test? So simply saying, this again coming in the SR Bommai judgment. So a composite floor test, let's say 3 of us friends, all of us want to become the chief minister. So all of us will go for voting together, and we'll find who has the maximum, who is able to fulfill the majority criteria. That is simply your composite floor test. And we understood what is a floor test, and we also understand that there is some discretionary power in the prima facie appointment of chief minister, but after appointment, the chief minister has to prove the majority at the floor of the house in accordance with SR Bommai judgment, and he has to prove that 50% plus 1 votes are present and voting. Let's look at the WTO dispute settlement mechanism. Now ongoing crisis is there in WTO dispute settlement mechanism, very important. Now please understand the structure. So you have a ministerial conference, and this ministerial conference has a general council, and this general council itself, it acts as the general council meeting as dispute settlement body. So this general council itself, the members of general council itself, they will only act. Let's say we are all members of general council. So we'll go into another room, and in that room we will behave as the dispute settlement body. That is the simple meaning, right? Now, why this is important is that there are some issues with this dispute settlement mechanism in WTO. Now, what happens is that the General Council, which is the WTO's highest decision making body, it comprises representation from member states, and it also meets as the dispute settlement body, or DSB. Now, the DSB has the authority to establish panel. So I'll create a panel for, let's say, intellectual property. I'll create a panel for biotechnology. Why? Because I'll create some expert panel who will adjudicate cases related to biotechnology, and this body was for intellectual property. Then as a body, I will accept or reject the panel's finding. Which panel? This panel I have created, panel of experts, or results of an appeal. Then I will also monitor the implementation of the ruling, and I can also authorize retaliation. If you do not agree to my adjudication, my judgment, then I will also authorize retaliation. Now, the main issue is about this appellate body. So you have the dispute settlement board, beyond which, if you are not happy with the decision of dispute settlement, what do you do in usually? So you are not happy with High Court, you go to Supreme Court. So similarly, if you're not happy with the dispute settlement board, you go ahead to the AB. AB is the appellate body. Now, this appellate body, it is a permanent body of 7 members who are appointed by the DSB for a 4-year term. Now, here US has stopped the appointment, it has stalled the appointment of members into this AB, or appellate board. Now, if you do not have an appellate board, then essentially you cannot appeal. If you cannot appeal, then what happens? Then your process of getting your dispute resolved has become extremely volatile. Now, a panel for appeal comprises of 3 from the 7-member AB. The appellate body members are persons with a demonstrated expertise in law, international trade, and subject matter of WTO agreements. And very important, an appointment of AB member takes place through consensus. That is, all member states need to agree upon the appointment. Now, this particular clause is being used by US because US feels that the DSB and the appellate mechanism has been skewed against its favor, and US is not happy with a lot of judgments coming from the dispute settlement body. So what it has done, it has virtually nullified the DSB appellate board, AB, right? And since 2018, the appellate body has been defunct. That has been defunct by whom? By the United States. So there was an article today about the AB, that is the appellate body today, and therefore I discussed this. Thank you so much. I hope it helped.